Albinism is a condition caused by reduced amounts of melanin, the pigment-forming molecule in the skin. It's an important disease to know as it ties back to several different biochemical reactions. In this video, I'll give you a quick visual mnemonic for albinism, so you can nail its cause and various clinical findings on your exam. Oh man, the car is totaled. Now I'm gonna be late for dinner. I was just getting off my work as a doughboy. See this all-white getup I'm wearing? This all-white appearance should help remind you of the disease, albinism. Yep, just like how I'm all white, patients with albinism have decreased melanin levels and appear hypopigmented. Let's move on. Now let's talk about how I got myself in this sorry situation in the first place. See my split tire here? Yep, I just ran over something and the tire blew out. This split tire should help you remember that albinism can be caused by a defect in tyrosinase. Get it? A split tire for tyrosinase? Since a tire is a recurring symbol for tyrosine, and the suffix ase literally describes an enzyme that splits things. Despite the name tyrosinase, this enzyme's major role isn't splitting tyrosine. While it can split tyrosine, thereby forming dopa in the process, you may remember from our scene on catecholamine synthesis that the major enzyme converting tyrosine to dopa is actually tyrosine hydroxylase. So what is tyrosinase good for anyway? Well, tyrosinase also splits dopa, a key step in eventually forming melanin. Speaking of dopa, just take a look back at me. Yeah, a doughboy is our recurring symbol for dopa, you know, the dopa doughboy. And this dopa doughboy should remind you that a defect in tyrosinase causes an inability to convert dopa to melanin. And speaking of tires, I'm really having trouble lifting this tire off the road. My inability to move this tire coincidentally helps me remember another cause for albinism, decreased tyrosine transport into melanosomes. Tyrosine is actually the precursor to dopa, so an inability to transport tyrosine into melanosomes will also lead to decreased melanin production. Just remember how I'm having trouble moving this tire to remember that defective tyrosine transport can be another cause of albinism. Now, one note before we move on. I want to emphasize that the problem in albinism is not melanocyte number, but rather melanocyte function. In other words, the number of melanocytes is normal. That being said, these melanocytes don't function properly. Put another way, albinism is not caused by a quantitative decrease in the number of melanocytes. Rather, it is caused by a decrease in the concentration of melanin vesicles within each melanocyte. Basically, each melanocyte just has less melanin. Let's compare this against something like vitiligo, which is another cause of hypopigmentation. Certain subtypes of vitiligo are caused by an autoimmune response to melanocytes, so the immune system actually attacks and kills them. In such a case, there is a quantitative decrease in the number of melanocytes. Alright, now we're done with the biochemical basis of the disease. Let's move on to the clinical symptoms you might encounter. Turn your eyes back to me, the doughboy. As I mentioned earlier, I'm severely hypopigmented, which, as you already know, represents the hypopigmented skin in albinism. This is an obvious finding, but I also want to mention that patients with albinism are at an increased risk of skin cancer. Physiologically, melanin pigments protect the skin by absorbing UV rays and preventing damage to cells. When patients have less melanin, UV rays are able to penetrate deeper and cause more damage. This can result in DNA damage, which obviously can lead to cancer. Should be pretty easy to reason through, so we didn't actually make a symbol for this one. Moving on, take a look back at my car. See how that windshield is all cracked? Yeah, I can't see anything through this windshield anymore. This picture should remind you of the impaired visual acuity that is classically seen in patients with albinism. In fact, when people refer to albinism, they are usually talking about oculocutaneous albinism, better known as OCA. The oculo prefix in the word oculocutaneous is obviously referring to the eyes, so it should come as no surprise that albinism patients have eye problems. While we're here, I'm going to give you another way that I like to remember eye problems. We know that melanin absorbs light, so it seems reasonable that the light sensing organ, aka the eye, would be affected if we have less melanin. Easy peasy. Next, take a look at my headlights. Yeah, this crash really did a number on them. They're all misaligned now. The misaligned headlights here should help you remember the findings of strabismus and nystagmus on ocular exam. Again, no real surprises here. Melanin is required for normal eye development, so strabismus and nystagmus aren't that surprising. Alright, so that's it for albinism. Let's do a quick recap before I call the car repair people. Albinism is a disease of hypopigmentation, and it's caused by defects in melanocyte function. More specifically, albinism patients have a normal number of melanocytes, but each melanocyte has less melanin. Albinism can be caused by a defect in the tyrosinase enzyme, which splits DOPA into melanin. Alternatively, it can also be caused by defective tyrosine transport, as tyrosine is the precursor to DOPA. Skin findings are most notable for a lack of pigmentation, which subsequently leads to an increased risk of skin cancer. Patients also have a number of ocular findings, such as impaired visual acuity, strabismus, and nystagmus. And now we're actually done. I'm ready for a break. I still can't lift this tire. We'll see you next time.